Welcome to the Histories of Northamptonshire podcast series, and this episode number 17. Recorded on location, each episode tells the story of one of the many and varied objects which are the focus of the exhibition A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects. The exhibition runs at the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery between the 20th of September 2025 and February 2026. Selected by local individuals, heritage groups and the museum's own curators, each object tells a different story from the county's past. And so, to our guest for this episode.
I'm Andy Chapman. I've been a professional archaeologist for over 50 years, working in Northamptonshire for a large part of that, and I'm here to talk about the Iron Age lead Torc from near Brack Mills in Northamptonshire. This is the museum's choice, but I'm rather pleased they did choose it because it came off one of my excavations, so I'm quite happy to talk about this object.
You have a certain stakeholder interest in that case. What is a Torc, spelt T-O-R-C?
It's essentially a metal collar. People, we would usually associate it with people of some importance in the Iron Age, would have a metal collar. Most fancy ones, of course, are the ones in gold. There are some very elaborate gold Torcs that were clearly being worn by chieftains and people of high status. Here we've got something rather more humble. It's lead, well, it's lead tin alloy. So when new, it would have looked, perhaps it would have passed for silver, been silvery and shiny. And this was found on a burial we excavated on an Anglian Water pipeline. A complete surprise. So we had some medieval stuff. We had part of an Iron Age settlement with some pits, these storage pits. And in one of the pits, the person digging it came down on the back of a skull, and suddenly we had an Iron Age burial in a pit. The significant thing here is not many people in the Iron Age ended up in the ground. Where they did end up is a whole different story, but on occasions you find these storage pits that have been disused and there'll be a human burial actually placed near the bottom of the pit, and this is one of these. So they don't turn up all that often.
You called it a collar.
And it's been twisted, so while it's setting, they've taken the hot lead and they've twisted it to put a twist in the metal. They've shaped the two ends to make terminals. You'd expect them to be at the front, of course, actually on the burial at the back, but that's a complication.
Okay, we're getting into production now. What I want to talk about first of all, though, is the Torc itself. Is it a functional item? Is it a decorative item?
It's a decorative item, without doubt. The thing here is it's unique. There are these gold Torcs, there are bronze Torcs that occur around the country. This is the only known example of a lead collar.
Anywhere.
And this woman in her late 30s, buried face down in this grave, and the collar was on back to front. So the actual terminals you expect to be visible, well, they were visible because she's face down, but so they've turned the Torc around so the terminals are at the back. The burial was a nice surprise. When we realised it had a collar around the neck, we knew something unique. It's the only collar of any sort that's been found actually around somebody's neck.
Is there a significance in the fact that the woman was found face down?
There is the possibility that she was some sort of sacrifice, which can take you into all sorts of realms. Who was she and why was she buried there in this way? Her hands were crossed beneath her, which could suggest they'd been tied together, but that's all speculation.
So the Torc then could have been part of that procedure. It could have been part of that ceremonial.
Yes, the Torc may well have been part of the ritual and the whole process of burying her there. You have to it's talking about a society that's very different in its way of thinking to the way we do today. This story did actually run quite a bit. It got published in an archaeological magazine, and the editor chose to put the headline over it, "Was this the first witch burial?" Which is something I would reject entirely, because the whole thing of witchcraft and its association with Christianity, and I do not think is applicable to the Iron Age context. Yes, are people who have respect for gods, and perhaps in many ways are very superstitious people, but how you translate that into this burial gets into a lot of awkward ground.
So potentially sacrificial, but not necessarily sacrificial, and the only example of a lead Torc anywhere so far. What do we surmise then about the use of metallurgy in the use of lead as opposed to gold or any other higher metal, based on what is here now?
We know they're mining lead in the Iron Age. I think it is just a case we are here. The gold Torcs are the high status objects. I think we have come down market, and it's a small settlement, and she's given what they can afford. I think in this case perhaps a lead collar is the only thing available to them. They are not a wealthy community.
So is it likely that she would have had this particular item before death, or conferred upon her as part of the ritual of burial?
I would suspect it was made for the burial. And of course, if we say it's a sacrifice, is that an unwilling sacrifice, or perhaps even a willing sacrifice? She's certainly, according to our bone specialist, she's in her late 30s. She's certainly had children. So possibly in Iron Age terms, she's being seen as she would have been a grandmother and perhaps one of the elders of the society. So you're talking about a time when if your crops fail, you starve. So there is even the possibility she could have been a willing sacrifice to help ensure the fertility of the ground for future harvests.
Which makes this particular talk decorative and therefore a piece of conferred status.
That's the way I'd like to see it. Whether that's true or not, again, is another matter. But it is a possibility that she was willing and they've conferred on her this object, which is perhaps the best they could afford in their circumstances.
You and I have talked about other items within the exhibition that have not been made here in the county, but have been brought into the county. You talked about lead being mined. Was lead mined in Northamptonshire? Because the history of the county is very much associated with ironstone. Here we've got lead. Would this have been produced at home?
It may well have been made here, but I don't think the lead came from here. Again, it's somewhere like the Peak District is a likely source of the lead mines up there. It may well have been fashioned down here. Mm-hmm. So there's no problem about doing basic metallurgy in Iron Age communities. It's something they're well aware of and well capable of doing.
Well, exactly. The use of fire, the use of alloy, the use of bringing one metal together with another. We're talking about skilled production. We're also talking about trade between different areas of the country then.
Yes, it was a very sophisticated society in the Iron Age, and here at the beginning of the Middle Iron Age, this is the point where it's all about to take off. This is about 400 BC, this burial, so the Middle Iron Age is just beginning with its big expansion of settlement and population. The Nen Valley is going to become very populated over the next 200 years or so, so it's towards the beginning of that process when perhaps things weren't quite as good. But certainly it's the beginning of a very successful period for Iron Age communities in Britain.
You've mentioned that this particular talk is the only one of its kind that's been found in this country.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Are there others that are waiting to be found? Or is it literally something which perhaps predated the general use of talks? Is this a precursor to other kinds of talk?
It comes somewhere in the middle, because, of course, in the Bronze Age, you get bronze neck collars, and in the Iron Age, you get the extravagant gold ones. So it's part of a tradition of having neck collars. But as I said, burials in pits are quite uncommon. There's not that many of them. So perhaps it is just there were others, but they haven't been found yet.
This item is perhaps ritualistic. Were talks of that era used decoratively by women, by men? Were they specific to the sexes?
As this is the only one that's ever been found around somebody's neck, of course we don't know. There'd probably be the supposition that those gold talks are being worn by men. But of course the Iron Age was a very matriarchal society. Lineage ran through the women, not the men, in the Iron Age, which is what caused all the trouble with Boudicca and the Romans. So it is possible. It was the women who wore the talks as the matriarchs of society.
I'm just fascinated where society engaged itself with decoration for the purposes of decoration rather than functionality.
That goes back all the way into the Stone Age, isn't it? Ever since people have been manufacturing objects, there's been practical everyday objects and there's always decorative objects. People have a sense of style and decoration going back tens of thousands of years.
I guess we need to be careful about supposition. We need to be careful about what we can say is factual. The fact is we have a lead talk. The fact is it's the only one of its kind that's been found in the United Kingdom, or what we now call the United Kingdom. From your point of view as an archaeologist, given the potential for what this item represents, what is your reaction to it?
It's a fascinating one-off. It's one of the things you get in. The reason I like prehistoric archaeology is that often there aren't clear-cut answers. The Romans are boring. The Romans are predictable. They're like us. You go back into prehistory and trying to understand how these people thought about the world and thought about themselves is part of the challenge. Some of the objects in the exhibition are common objects and we can understand them. Other objects like this talk is a one-off object. And quite what it's doing there, what its significance is something that you can speculate about endlessly. But I think we're somewhere in the right direction.
So beyond its uniqueness, why should this item be in the exhibition of just 100 items telling the various histories of Northamptonshire?
Firstly, because it is a unique object in the entire country, and it does raise these questions of what was going on in Iron Age society, how did they think about the world, and which is a subject of fascination to us because it is difficult to get back into that way of thinking, a very different understanding of the world.
A fascinating object that perhaps poses more questions than it is possible to answer right now. Perhaps the subject of greater investigation on another occasion. Andy, lovely to talk to you. Thank you for telling me the story.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this Histories of Northamptonshire podcast. If you would like to find out more about the objects or listen to other episodes in the series, go to www.northamptonmuseums.com. Alternatively, you can visit the Northampton Museum and Art Gallery, where you can see the A History of Northamptonshire in 100 Objects exhibition for yourself. The Histories of Northamptonshire project is funded by Arts Council England as part of the National Portfolio Programme.